For those who don't know yet, our world is almost 4.5 billion years old. Meanwhile, the oldest type of human started to appear more than 7 million years ago, and we modern humans have only been here on Earth for about 300,000 years. Now think about it carefully. Who could have lived on Earth before humans arrived? Was there really no one living here on Earth before us? Or could it be that the Silurian hypothesis is actually true? In 2018, two scientists introduced an idea that shook everyone's perspective about the history of Earth. With a surprising question, they raised the possibility: what if there was a civilization before us? What if our world was not just once the home of an advanced civilization, and then the world was destroyed back then, causing all traces of them to disappear? It really makes you think, and there's a big possibility that this is true. But before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. This is a big help for us content creators. Thank you very much, and now back to the video. For a long time, people have thought that we are the highest level of evolution. But according to what's called the Silurian hypothesis, the story might not be that simple. This idea was first introduced in 2020 by Adam Frank, an astrophysicist, and Gavin A. Schmidt, a climate scientist, who published it in their paper titled The Silurian Hypothesis. Would it be possible to detect an industrial civilization in the geological record? Here they explained that it is possible that ancient civilizations existed in the past, but all evidence of them was erased due to the natural processes of our planet. If you think about it, the implication is terrifying. It's just a simple question, but it gradually turned into a much deeper conversation. If there really were earlier civilizations, where are their traces? Try to imagine. For example, if all people suddenly disappeared today, how long would it take before all memories and traces of our way of life are also erased? According to scientists, just a few thousand years would be enough for buildings to collapse, plastics to disappear, and even our radioactive waste would gradually vanish as well. If everything we've left behind can be erased that quickly, what about civilizations that may have come before us? Maybe we're just the newest page in a very long story of the world. But before we answer the bigger question, where did the name Silurian actually come from? It's derived from the Silurian period, which lasted from 443 to 419 million years ago. This is the third and shortest period of the Paleozoic era. And just so you won't get confused, the Paleozoic era is an ancient period in the history of the world. This is when sea animals first multiplied, plants and insects appeared on land, and amphibians and reptiles began to emerge. During this time, the large continents also formed, but it ended with the biggest mass extinction, where almost all life on Earth disappeared. Let's go back. According to scientists, before that, life only existed in the sea. There was no evidence yet of any intelligent beings. But there's another reason why the name Silurians was chosen. According to Frank and Schmidt, they also wanted to give a humorous take on the popular sci-fi series back then, Doctor Who. In that show, there were beings called Silurians, a fictional race of reptiles who supposedly existed before humans and evolved as intelligent beings. They had their own civilization. They combined this concept, the real Silurian period, and the possibility of an earlier civilization. And from there, the term Silurian hypothesis was born. And it didn't just remain a hypothesis. Their paper deepened the idea even further. If there was an earlier advanced civilization, did they leave any traces that we can see today? Their answer is probably none. But why? And why is it also difficult to prove this theory? The answer is because of powerful forces of nature such as plate tectonics, erosion, and fossilization. These processes are enough to erase all physical evidence of any ancient civilization. This is where the idea of Adam Frank and Gavin Schmidt comes in. Instead of looking for pictures of some Silurian reptiles or strange artifacts, it's better to focus on traces that are not easily erased, the so-called chemical fingerprints embedded in the rocks and soil of the Earth. It seems hard to accept for many, especially nowadays when almost everyone is looking for concrete evidence. Just think about it. You won't be looking for actual lizard folks anymore. Instead, you'll just be staring at the strange movements of the carbon cycle. It's kind of weird and funny, but we'll see later why this is the smartest way. Despite this, did you know that our Earth is like a person whose mood keeps changing? The seas today could become mountains tomorrow, and the mountains we see now could one day become places where people live. The face of the world is always changing because of geological forces like erosion, tectonics, volcanic eruptions, fossilization, and many others. For example, plate tectonics. The surface of the Earth is made up of large plates that move slowly, collide, and sink in what are called subduction zones. It's like we don't feel it because the process is so slow, but over millions of years it gradually recycles the planet's crust. And in that process, any evidence of ancient cities or structures could be completely erased. That's why the oldest part of the oceanic crust that we know today is only about 200 million years old compared to the Earth's age of 4.5 billion years. That's not all. On the land itself, we can clearly see how the wind and water slowly erode the mountains and fill the valleys. Even the strongest concrete and metal will eventually give in under the pressure of nature. All that's left are small pieces of history, while others are completely erased. So the question is, if there was an earlier civilization, where would we look for evidence? According to Frank and Schmid, it's not in physical objects, but in chemical traces. If the artifacts and buildings are gone, maybe some unusual marks were left on the rocks. For example, if they used fossil fuels, the natural balance of carbon isotopes should have changed. The level of carbon-12 would be higher compared to carbon-13, and this unusual pattern would be visible in the sediments buried in the Earth's crust. If they used fertilizers made from nitrogen, there should also be a distinct level of nitrogen-15 found in the soil. And that's not all. They even took the discussion further, asking what if they had already reached the level of making nuclear weapons? If that's the case, it's possible that radioactive isotopes like plutonium-244 and iodine-129, which have very long half-lives, were also left behind. And these are rarely found in nature. If scientists discover such traces underground, it could be proof that nuclear technology was used even before humans arrived. But there's a problem. Nature itself can leave similar marks. For example, volcanic eruptions release huge amounts of carbon dioxide that also affect carbon isotopes. A well-known example of this is the Permian-Triassic extinction event, more than 250 million years ago, when volcanoes released so much carbon that it caused global warming and ocean acidification. And when it comes to nuclear, there is also natural evidence discovered at the Oklo Natural Nuclear Reactor in Gabon, West Africa, which formed almost 2 billion years ago. This is the only known natural nuclear reactor in history, and it's enough basis for some to say that if we ever find a history, that's why after almost all possible evidence was countered, Frank and Schmidt played their final card, the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, or PETM. This happened about 56 million years ago and is considered one of the most severe global warming events in Earth's history. For thousands of years, the global temperature rose by 5 to 8 degrees Celsius, and temperatures at the North Pole even reached 20 degrees. This lasted for more than 200,000 years, released an enormous amount of carbon, and completely changed the state of the world. And this is where the biggest question arose. If the earliest humans only appeared around 7 million years ago, who or what released that much carbon to start the PETM? Could it be that the advanced civilization referred to by the Silurian hypothesis was actually the real cause of the intense warming during the PETM? And this is Frank and Schmidt's final card. Just think about it. In the modern era of the Anthropocene, intense human industrialization has caused a massive increase in carbon emissions. We are repeatedly being warned by governments about global warming, aren't we? If humans are capable of releasing that much carbon into the air now, what assurance do we have that
6 million years ago,
another industrial civilization before us didn't do the same thing? Is it possible that the so-called Silurians lived in a society as rich and as complex as ours today? If they really were the cause of the PETM, is that enough evidence that there was an earlier advanced civilization? The answer is no. After Frank and Schmidt published their paper, it was immediately criticized and debunked by other scientists. First, natural processes are also a cause and could be the main reason for the sudden release of carbon, such as volcanic eruptions, methane hydrate destabilization, or the massive release of organic carbon. Second, not a single archaeological or fossil find has been discovered that could be linked to that period. Even if we assume that geological processes may have erased the traces, nothing has been discovered that matches the PETM. Lastly, researchers have noticed that the rate of carbon released during the PETM was much slower compared to the rapid emissions of modern humans. If the earlier ones were truly advanced, the pollution pattern should match our current rate. Because of this, the final argument of the Silurian hypothesis falls apart. But the speculations didn't end there. Now let's move on to the dinosaurs. For many years, it was believed that they were fierce but not intelligent. But what if some of them were smarter and more organized than we thought? In 2021, paleontologist Diego Paul studied a species called Maiasaura, and everyone was surprised. It turns out that these dinosaurs had remarkable intelligence and social behavior. Every year they returned to the same place to lay eggs. This proves that they had memory, and they could choose a safe place for their young. Not only that, their community worked together. The males kept watch while the younger members searched for food. It's like a modern animal community, organized and careful. But the even greater possibility doesn't end here. There is also a unique species, the Troodon. It's small, bird-like in appearance, but its intelligence is remarkable. It has a higher brain-to-body ratio compared to most of its contemporaries. In addition, it has binocular vision and hands that can grasp. These traits suggest that they could perform more complex tasks, such as cooperative hunting. And if the massive asteroid impact hadn't happened some experts believe that Troodon could have evolved to become even more intelligent than humans. Because of this, paleontologist Dale Russell proposed what he called the Dinosauroid, a theory that Troodon may have taken on a humanoid form, with the ability to make machines and develop culture. It's a bit surprising, but it also offers an intriguing idea. Is it possible that there were dinosaur species that became even more intelligent than we think? If that's the case, would they be able to lay the foundation of their own civilization? Again, we don't have direct evidence like tools, buildings, or artifacts. But according to the Silurian hypothesis, the answer might lie in faint chemical traces, isotopic signatures left hidden in the rocks. And scientists didn't just look at dinosaurs, they also studied fungi. In the early 2000s, a Japanese biologist named Toshiyuki Nakashima, a scientist, conducted an experiment using slime mold and a sugar cube placed inside a maze. Surprisingly, even without a brain, the slime mold found a way to grow, adjust, and reach the sugar. This proved that even fungi have a level of intelligence that can be compared to some animals. That's why the question arose, could they have been the basis for a silent and unseen type of civilization? And if our imagination continues, we can also notice the pyramids, the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, Chichen Itza in Mexico, and the Cholula Pyramid, all built by different ancient cultures, thousands of years apart and separated by oceans. But why do they have almost the same style and design? Is it possible that there was an earlier advanced civilization that actually laid out the plans before the ancient people we know came along? The The big question remains, is it true that there was a civilization before humans? If there was, what did they look like? Were they beings who caused the PETM? Advanced dinosaurs like the Troodon, silent fungi, or perhaps the real architects of the pyramids? Above all, could all traces of them have already been erased by our world's geological processes? Or maybe if we look closer, did they leave behind chemical fingerprints that have lasted a long time? Ones that are screaming to be noticed? What do you think? Shall we go even deeper into the discussion? If we go back to our discussion, it's clear that it's hard to find physical evidence of an earlier civilization because nature can erase all traces. But there's one thing that's almost impossible to hide: the chemicals they left behind. 3 inescapable traces. First, think about the synthetic chemicals made by humans. There are compounds like CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, and PFAS, per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances that do not naturally occur in nature. If there was an advanced civilization before us, there's a good chance they also left behind these kinds of chemicals. The problem is, after such a long time, these could be dug up and mistaken for unusual minerals or inclusions in rocks. Second, we now have a new kind of rock that is emerging. This is a rock made from a mixture of natural sand, stone, and melted plastic. If there were earlier societies that used synthetics, they might have also created their own artificial rocks that could be unearthed by future civilizations. Third, traces can also be seen in the ecological record. For example, a sudden increase in one type of pollen in the sediment could be a sign of widespread monoculture farming. If an ancient society planted a particular crop over a vast area of land, it might have left a pattern that scientists today can read. And now, let's move on to technosignatures on Earth. When we think about the future, a big question arises. What if we want to leave a clear message for future generations or beings? Some scientists say that technosignatures shouldn't just be searched for as broad messages. For example, if there was an ancient civilization, they might have engraved geological scale markers, large marks on mountains, or carvings on rocks that wouldn't easily disappear, just like what we're doing now with nuclear waste warning markers that are designed to remain as warnings even after thousands of years have passed. And here are the lost continents and continental shelves. Another interesting point that's often overlooked is the continental shelves, low-lying parts of land that are now submerged under the sea. During the time when sea levels were lower, these were the places where ancient people often lived. So if there was an earlier civilization, it's possible that their traces are also there. However, the continental shelves are also quickly covered by sediment. So if there was an advanced city or technology in these places millions of years ago, they might have already been buried beneath mud and rocks that are now extremely deep. The question now is, what if it's us too? At the end of all this, there's another chilling idea. What if millions of years from now, another species will also study us? When our buildings, technology, and culture are gone, maybe the only things they'll find are strange levels of carbon isotopes, synthetic chemicals, and plastic glomerates in the Earth's crust. If that's the case, maybe they'll think there was a mysterious society that existed before them. Just like how we're asking questions now about the Silurians. Let's go even deeper into the discussion. If there really are traces of an earlier civilization, they wouldn't just be scattered on the surface of the Earth. These need to be searched for in places that aren't easily changed by time and nature. And there are actually some real sites in the world where such evidence can be found. Deep sea sediment cores. One of the most reliable archives of the world's history is found under the sea. Through deep sea drilling projects, scientists are able to obtain deep sediment cores that are like time capsules. Thousands of years of dust, volcanic ash, microfossils, and chemical residues are layered here. If there are abnormal carbon or synthetic compounds that are not naturally occurring, traces will most likely be found here. Antarctic and Greenland ice layers. The thick ice in Antarctica and Greenland is like a clean library of the past. Every year, a new layer of snow and ice accumulates. When scientists examine them, they can see trapped air bubbles, dust, and chemical traces that date back millions of years. If there is an unusual gas or unnatural pollution, there could be a clue. Desert rock formations in places with almost no rain, like the Sahara Desert or the Atacama Desert in Chile, have rocks and soil that have barely changed for millions of years. Because there is little erosion, there is a higher chance that chemical fingerprints or unusual layers not created by natural processes have been preserved. Submerged coastlines, after the last ice age, the sea level rose significantly and swallowed up many seashores. Some experts say that some ancient cities might now be underwater, covered by thick layers of sediment. On the continental shelves, the shallow parts of the sea near land, there could be buried evidence of earlier civilizations that modern exploration hasn't reached yet. Caves and karst systems, especially those with stable conditions, have the ability to preserve materials that don't decompose quickly. If there are artifacts or unusual chemical deposits left behind, they have a greater chance of surviving compared to those in open spaces. In other words, if there really was a civilization before humans, we wouldn't find them on the surface of the Earth, which changes quickly because of rain, wind, and plate tectonics. The real answer might be hidden in the sea, in the ice in the desert, or deep within caves.